Welcome back to Shatranj 64, where every chess game is more than just moves. It's a battle of ideas, pressure, and precision. If you enjoy deep chess analysis, make sure to subscribe and stay connected. Today we have a blockbuster from the FIDE Candidates Tournament 2026, Round 8. Hikaru Nakamura with the white pieces, facing Fabiano Caruana with black, two of the strongest players in the world. And this game turns into a pure attacking masterpiece. The game begins with Nakamura playing c4, choosing a flexible English setup, and Caruana mirrors with c5, immediately creating symmetry. As knight f3 and knight c6 appear on the board, the position starts developing naturally, but then Nakamura breaks the symmetry with d4. Caruana captures in the center, and the knight from f3 recaptures on d4, establishing central control, while black develops with knight f6. Nakamura supports with knight c3, and Caruana plays e6, preparing a solid structure. Then comes bishop to f4, a very active developing move, and Caruana strikes in the center with d5. Nakamura captures on d5, and after knight takes back on d5, white immediately captures that knight with his other knight, forcing b-pawn recapture. This gives Nakamura a structural target. The bishop calmly retreats to d2, and Caruana places his bishop on b4, pinning the knight. Nakamura responds with queen to a4, putting pressure on multiple targets, and Caruana plays a5, stopping any queenside expansion. Then comes a strong central push, e4, and Caruana decides to exchange, capturing on c3. The pawn recaptures from b2, opening the b-file, and black repositions the bishop to e7. Nakamura continues development with bishop e2, while Caruana castles safely. The bishop comes to f4 again, and Caruana plays bishop to a6, offering a trade. Nakamura accepts it, and after rook recaptures on a6, black gets active rook play. Nakamura centralizes with rook d1, and Caruana places the queen on b6, targeting weaknesses. White castles, and Caruana shifts the queen to b5, keeping pressure. Nakamura calmly brings the queen to c2, and black develops the bishop to c5, pointing toward the king side. Now Nakamura pushes c4, gaining space, and Caruana retreats the queen to b7. Bishop comes to e5, a strong central post, and black responds with queen to e7. Nakamura improves coordination with queen d3, and Caruana plays f6, challenging that bishop. The bishop steps forward to d6, creating tension, but Caruana captures it, and after queen recaptures, queens are exchanged on d6. Nakamura recaptures with the rook, entering the endgame with active pieces. Caruana plays rook b8, activating, but Nakamura immediately grabs a pawn on e6, a very important moment. Caruana counters with rook b2, invading the second rank, but Nakamura keeps momentum with rook e7. Black doubles rooks with rook to b6, and Nakamura shifts rook to a7, staying active. Caruana captures on a2, picking up a pawn, but Nakamura plays h3, creating luft. Black continues with h5, and Nakamura brings the rook to d1, centralizing. Caruana doubles rooks on b2, creating pressure. Then comes a tactical sequence. Nakamura plays rook d8 with check, forcing the king to h7, and then rook d7, increasing pressure. Caruana grabs on f2, but Nakamura responds with rook takes g7 check. The king moves to h8, but Nakamura continues with rook h7 check, forcing king to g8, and then rook from a to g7 check. A beautiful rook lift. The king runs to f8, but Nakamura keeps chasing with rook f7 check, pushing the king back to g8, and then rook g7 again, followed by rook g6. Caruana tries to defend with rook f4, but Nakamura captures on f6 with check, simplifying the position. After rook recaptures, Nakamura takes back with rook f6, keeping control, and Caruana brings the king to g7. Now Nakamura picks up another pawn with rook takes c6, and Caruana tries counterplay with rook c2. Nakamura plays rook c5, staying active, while Caruana improves king position to g6. Then comes rook takes a5, grabbing material, but Caruana captures on c4. Nakamura repositions with rook e5, and Caruana pushes h4, trying to create chances. The king comes to f2, and Caruana gives check with rook c2. Nakamura calmly steps to f3, and after rook c3 check, the king advances to g4. Very confident play. Caruana checks with rook g3, but Nakamura captures on h4, eliminating the pawn. Black takes on g2, but Nakamura plays rook f5, staying active. Caruana brings rook to g1, and Nakamura reinforces with rook f4. The rooks keep maneuvering. Rook a1, king g3, rook g1 check, king f3, rook f1 check, king e3, rook e1 check. But Nakamura keeps improving his king position step by step. Eventually, the king reaches d4, and Caruana plays rook a1. Nakamura plays rook f5, maintaining pressure, while black tries rook h1. Nakamura responds with rook f3, and after rook a1, he pushes h4, gaining space. Caruana checks with rook a4. Nakamura steps t5, and after rook a5 check, the king goes to f4. Caruana plays rook h5, but Nakamura brings his king to g4, and black repositions with rook e5. Nakamura stabilizes with rook f4, and Caruana plays king h6, followed by king g6. Nakamura calmly improves with king f3 and king e3, while Caruana tries rook a5. Then comes rook g4 check, forcing king to f6, and Nakamura plays rook g5, keeping pressure. Caruana goes rook a1, but Nakamura responds with rook f5 check, pushing the king to g6. Now comes a beautiful finishing idea. Pawn to h5 check, forcing king to h6, and finally the decisive push, e5. At this moment, Caruana realizes there is no stopping the position. The pawns and king are too strong, and black resigns. Hikaru Nakamura wins this incredible game against Fabiano Caruana, a brilliant display of rook activity, king activation, and endgame mastery. If you enjoyed this complete storytelling analysis, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Shatranj64. And tell me in the comments, was it the rook activity or the king march that impressed you the most? See you in the next battle.